Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have another preview and prediction video, and today it's Bianca Andreescu versus Ons Jabeur in the third round of Wimbledon. This is going to be a really interesting match. Ons Jabeur, of course, a finalist from Wimbledon last year in 2022, and for Bianca Andreescu, this is arguably some of the best grass court tennis she's played in her career. She hasn't played a huge amount of matches on grass, that has to be said, but all in all, I think this ends up being a really interesting match due to the form of both players going into it. Jabeur is a slight favourite, and we'll delve into that in more detail in a second. Before we get into it, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you're new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Pretty similar to what we normally do with our preview videos. We're going to break it down. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about their match that they've played at Wimbledon so far, so the first two rounds, how they look generally speaking. Then I'm going to talk about the head-to-head. They've only played each other once, by the way. Ons Jabeur won that match, but we'll very briefly touch upon that. And then finally, I'll talk about it more from a technical standpoint, strategically how it might play out, what to look out for, how each player might utilize their strengths on this surface, and what might they have to potentially adapt or adjust on this surface, or even put in the locker and leave for a rainy day because it might not be as effective on grass. So let's get into it. So for Ons Jabeur, she's had a couple of really good wins and no dropped sets whatsoever, which is really good. Beat Madeleine Freck in the first round 6-3, 6-3, and then beat Bei, the Chinese player, 6-1, 6-1. So a double breadstick, and she's looked really good, I think, in my opinion anyway, this week, and we'll touch upon that in a little bit. But for Bianca Andreescu, she's had some good wins. Now, both very hard-fought victories, both three-set victories, beating Bondar 6-3, 3-6, 6-2. And then if we look at Kalinina, she ended up beating her 6-2, 4-6, 7-6, 9-7 in that final set tiebreaker. So clutch from Andreescu. Kalinina, a very solid player. So that was a really impressive victory from Bianca Andreescu. So how have both looked? Well, I think Andreescu is pretty inexperienced on the grass. I wouldn't say her game is the most suited to grass. You can tell that, and I think she will safely, well, I think it's a safe bet anyway to say that she most likely would say her favourite surface is hard court. Has had a lot of good results on hard court. Won a slam there, of course, as well, the US Open. On grass, though, she does have a lot of attributes that should translate well onto grass. She defensively is very good, which you might say, okay, well, that's not a be-all and end-all on grass. That's not necessarily an attribute that you have to have. But her slice, her backhand slice, forehand slice, the way that she's able to move as well, and I've seen her move quite well on the grass, those are all massive positives. A backhand slice, a good backhand slice on grass, and especially on the women's tour, they utilize a forehand slice a lot more than the men's. The forehand slice as well. Both of these tools are really useful when it comes to grass court tennis. The skids on, of course, lower bouncing, and if you hit it with enough pace and lower the net, you can end up being an aggressive shot, not just a defensive or variation in rallies. For Ons Jabeur, if we talk about her attributes briefly before we get into it more strategically and tactically in a second, she made the final last year, so I think it's very clear that she has the attributes to do well on this surface. Fantastic drop shot. Again, similar to Andreescu, she has a very good backhand slice. She can slice and dice on the forehand or backhand side as well. But also she hits quite flat, especially on the forehand side. And the backhand side she can also hit pretty flat as well. And can serve big on the first set, which is important. She also has very good hands in the net. And I think she's a very good volleyer. A very instinctive volley and transition as well. So let's then talk about their head-to-head. So they've only played each other once, so we don't really need to touch upon this too much. And what I would say is this happened 2 years ago in Montreal on a hard court. No need to really look into it. But if we're going to talk about it, Ons Jabeur won 6-7, 6-4, 6-1. And look, I mean, it has no bearing in my mind on this match tomorrow. In terms of then the strategic standpoint and how this match might play out, because that's, I think, what everyone really wants to listen to and hopefully delve into. There's a few factors, I think, and I always like to start off with the serve return dynamic because I feel like that's the best place to start off, and especially on grass where the points are shorter, you're not going to get super long points on grass as you would say on clay. There's not as many breaks of serve for the most part. There's quite a few more tiebreakers, and people are getting through their service games quicker with, as I said, shorter points. So the first few shots are always really important in tennis, generally speaking, but on grass, I feel like they're even more important. So that then encapsulates serve and return. We're talking about, of course, serve +1, return +1, and then the more shots you go on, yes, still important, but those initial first few shots on grass, crucial. So Ons Jabeur's first serve, for me, is a real weapon on this surface. She has good variation. She hits her spots nicely. Good slice servers on the due side. And I do like her serve on this surface. I think it's really effective. Her second serve is a bit of a weakness, I have to say. And Andreescu's a very good returner, naturally very good returner. She doesn't mind stepping in, taking it early. Some players on tour, they like to stand back. However, Andreescu's not one of them. Andreescu doesn't want to necessarily stand really far back. She likes taking the ball a bit early. She might even block the return, but she wants to take it early, try and rush her opponent, and wants to be on the front foot. So I think that's a real positive for Andreescu, and she'll be looking to attack the second serve of Andreescu. Sorry, of Ons Jabeur even. She'll be looking to step in, really be aggressive on the return, go line as well on returns, and put Jabeur on the back foot. On the first serve, that's where it's going to be really interesting because I want to see how Andreescu approaches the Ons Jabeur first. So she's going to be able to make a lot of returns and get into the games because her defensive capabilities are good. They are good, Andreescu, and she will hustle and she will try and drag Ons Jabeur into really difficult moments. But the question is she going to be able to do that with quality? Because she needs to have quality on her return and then her ground strokes after that to get to that point. It's a big question mark. It really is, because she's got the ability, if we're talking about generally speaking, player to player, but on grass, Ons Jabeur definitely has an edge. In terms of Andreescu's serve, she needs to hit a high percentage of first serves for me. I think her serve, for me, is one of the biggest weaknesses in her game. One of the positives, though, that I've seen recently, and even on clay, she was hitting a few aces. I did see her ramp up her first serve a little bit. Those are positive things. If she's able to hit her spots, she's going to get assisted by the surface. It's a quick surface, it skids on, and it really does give you the... Look, it definitely rewards a player hitting their spots and hitting the serve cleanly into corners. So let's see whether she's able to replicate the type of serving that I've seen from her in the last few months anyway against Ons Jabeur, and not just replicate it for a couple of games, but throughout the whole match. Because if she does, she'll put herself in a decent position. Ons Jabeur is also a pretty good returner. I would say her returning skills, especially her second serve returning skills, are really good. And I would argue that both players probably are more natural in terms of their returning ability than their serving ability. Now, Andreescu, though, like Ons Jabeur, has a pretty weak second serve. Now, that could be an issue because Ons Jabeur will drop shot her second serve at times. She'll make it awkward. She'll slice it. She'll dice it. She'll go hard and flat with it as well. And Andreescu needs to look at how she delivers that. I'm wondering, and I've seen this a few times, not just a few times, but in multiple instances in the last few days at Wimbledon. And I do think it could be a decent tactic to utilize, especially on the men's side. I've seen it quite often, is people hitting a kick serve into the body. And I almost feel like for Ons Jabeur, if you give her pace and she doesn't necessarily need to, and she's not uncomfortable, then she can eat you alive at times. However, if you can hit a good kick serve into her body for a second serve, it might actually make her uncomfortable and tuck her up a little bit, and she won't be able to generate pace or direction, or at least hit it as cleanly as she'd like to get on the front foot on the return game. So, of course, it's something that Andreescu might utilize. It's not going to be every single second serve, but it's definitely something I would look to utilize if I was Andreescu against Ons Jabeur. Now, that's a serve return dynamic talked about a little bit. I don't think either player is going to necessarily serve and volley. I know both players like coming forward to the net and transitioning. I don't see them necessarily coming forward a lot. Now, Ons Jabeur might do it with the wide serve from the juice side and come forward. But against Andreescu, that's a bit risky. Andreescu is a very good returner, as I said. So I'm not sure whether we're going to see a lot of serve volleying. We might see a serve +1 volley tactic, or serve +1, +2, then volley tactic, for example. Maybe not, though, the classic serve and volley routine. Then if we talk about from the back of the court, the ground stroke rallies are going to be really interesting because we're going to see, as I said, a lot of slicing. Both players like their slices, especially on the backhand side. We're going to see power as well. We're going to see a great variation from the back of the court. And I think it's going to make it really interesting because both players potentially might not necessarily be able to get into the type of rhythm they'd like, because the person on the other side of the court is going to have a bag of tricks, or not necessarily even a bag of tricks, but just enough variation to make it a little bit awkward. Now, I think Ons Jabeur utilizes her skills better on a grass court than Andreescu. Her slice, I think, is better than Andreescu's as well. The backhand slice, very knife edge stuff. It's very low over the net. It's awkward. She likes to hit short ones as well, angled, to get people into uncomfortable positions. Good lob, good drop shot. Andreescu has some really good tools as well. I would say she's a slightly bigger hitter. I would say that her backhand actually as well. Her backhand line is a real asset, and I think she should utilize that against Ons Jabeur when she has a moment, because Ons Jabeur, despite being really good, I don't think she's as good a defender as Andreescu. So if Andreescu can be on the front foot, give herself, an opportunity to put Ons Jabeur on the defensive and have the impetus in this match, she'll put herself in a really good position. If she's constantly having to hustle and defend throughout the whole match, she's going to be in trouble, because Ons Jabeur will move her left and right, backwards and forwards, drop shot her. She'll come to the net. She will make life really difficult for Andreescu. Andreescu needs to try and play this match on her own terms when she can, because Ons Jabeur is the type of player who has that ability to take a match away from you, especially on grass. And she will come out quickly. She'll try and go big with the serve, the return, and she'll back it up. She'll back it up on Jabeur with a +1 shot, especially behind the serve. Can Andreescu do the same thing behind her serve? We'll see. We'll see. But I think she needs to, because she can't let Ons Jabeur get on the front foot in rallies, not just consistently, but I would say for the majority of time at least. Anyway, she can't be on the back foot for the majority of points, Andreescu. She will be in trouble if she is, because it's a grass court. This isn't a clay court. It's not so hard court. And it'll be really difficult for her to win a high proportion of points playing that way. Backhand to backhand, she might actually have a decent chance. I think the issue might be that Ons Jabeur hits the backhand really flat. Andreescu does slice pretty well, though. And I think her backhand is quite solid. So that's not a bad matchup. Forehand to forehand, Andreescu does have pretty good ability on that forehand side, but she does rip with a lot of topspin. That's not necessarily a bad thing on the grass court. We need to be able to hit through the court and penetrate through the court. That does mean a bit more pace. We need to flatten out a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean just hitting it flat like a Del Potro, for example. And there's not many players that can hit it that flat and have success and hit it with a lot of depth and power and precision. But it does mean slightly less topspin, more pace through your ground stroke, a bit flatter, a bit less height over the net, hitting through the court. Now, Ons Jabeur is, her game is naturally like that anyway, to be honest. So she's going to be in a good position there, and she finds good angles as well. And Andreescu, though, also does find good angles. So I'm really excited for this matchup, because I do think it's a really good one. I think Ons Jabeur edges it because of her experience on grass, and also I think her game is a bit more suited, no doubt. But I think Andreescu could give her a really good game, and I'm looking forward to it. Let me know your prediction in the comment section below. I'm going to go for Ons Jabeur, but in 3 sets. I think it's going to be a really interesting match. I think Andreescu can take a set off her, but I think given how Andreescu's been playing and how Ons Jabeur's been playing, Jabeur, after just double breadsticking her opponent today, is going to be in great, not just form, but she's going to be in great spirits going into this match. So let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you in the next video.